Well, it seems when you mention mothers and fathers in Parliament, it can cause a major storm. That's what we saw last week, and that's how wacky our politics has become. Apparently, homophobia is everywhere to be seen. And even if you can't see it, call it anyway. Let's check it out. So, according to a report in News Hub, National MP Simon O'Connor denied that he was suggesting same-sex couples shouldn't be raising children when he stressed in a parliamentary debate that it should be the responsibility of the mother and the father to raise their child. Yes, radical statement. He said in this media report, it said he was instead trying to make the point that fathers, who he says are often the ones paying child support, need to be involved in raising their children. Now, why did this come up in the first place? Well, politicians last week were considering the Child Support Pass-On Acts Amendment Bill, which ensures that all child support being paid to a beneficiary on a sole parent benefit goes to the parent, which sounds a fair idea. Currently, the IRD takes the child support amount equal to the parent's benefit and only pays them the excess. And during the debate, Simon O'Connor said it was his personal view that it was a responsibility of parents to look after their own children, and the state should, by and large, stay out of it. And he said there are some pragmatic and right reasons for the state to assist. Have a watch.
The parents, Madam Speaker, should look after their own children. That is part of the social contract. The Crown, the state, whatever you want to call it, should stay out of that, by and large. This whole community and village to raise a child, it's just such a trite phrase, okay? And I'm not even going to try and elaborate on that in this little speech tonight. It is the responsibility of the mother and the father, and I'm being very deliberate with my language there, the mother and the father to raise the child.
Yep, mother and the father, not the village or the community or whatever, the mother and the father. That's atrocious, isn't it? Yeah, and well, Marja Lubeck, who's a Labour MP who's fortunately leaving Parliament this year, was very upset. She said in this tweet, national going from bad to worse. Simon O'Connor just now on the child support bill, quote, it is the responsibility of the mother and the father, and I'm being deliberately with my language here, the mother and the father to raise a child, end quote. And then Justice Minister Kiri Allen got very upset also and said, on the note of speeches in the House last night, let's highlight the substance of what was being said by members on child support. Here's Simon O'Connor giving National's view on who parents can be. Hashtag mothers and fathers, hashtag no homo. Now, O'Connor has got the backing of his leader, Christopher Luxon, who says that Simon O'Connor was trying to beat up on deadbeat dads who need to step up and take responsibility for their children. But all the reporters could talk about and ask about was homophobia and homophobic.
Simon O'Connor was being a bit homophobic last night in the House when he was talking about, parents just being the mum and the dad?
No, look, I think that was a beat up by Kiri Allen, who was reading the wrong speech and was probably embarrassed about it. The bottom line is what Simon was trying to make in the context of a child support bill was, I thought, very clear. He was trying to beat up on deadbeat dads and say, hang on, you've got a responsibility here to step up and look after your kids. I don't take any offence in those comments.
Yeah, pretty simple really, but the reporters couldn't let go. But look, here's the really, really interesting thing. During that debate, who else talked about mothers and fathers in the debate? Well, I'm glad you asked. Firstly, let me show you some examples. Here's ACT MP Karen Chow talking about fathers.
And it may also encourage people to step up and actually name the father of their babies so that they can get child support from the parent that should be supporting the child that they've brought into this world.
Did she say father? Now here's National MP Louise Upston.
We've seen that already with policy changes made by the Labor government that we disagree with. The removal of the subsequent child policies and also the removal of the obligation to name a father. If a father's not named, of course, you then can't claim child support. So I do think that this may well be another piece of legislation that means the number claiming the sole parent benefit actually increases.
Name a father? I mean, what about same-sex female couples? Why father? Where's Kiri Allen when we really need her? Here's Labour MP Emily Henderson, who also is fortunately leaving Parliament soon, but she talks about mums. What about same-sex dads?
The only people who were not receiving that was solo parents, and of course when we are talking about that, we are talking about solo mums. This bill...
What? I cannot believe it. I cannot believe that that was accepted in Parliament. But here's the worst example, and it's from another Labour MP. Now, you're going to need to sit down because the speech is dripping with homophobia. Have a listen to Sarah Pallett.
If you are fortunate enough to be in a relationship that is stable and solid and without flaw, good on you. It's not my experience that all fathers act responsibly with regard to the care and support, especially financial support, of their children once that relationship has ended. I'm just going to share...
Fathers. So talking about fathers and mothers as well, but then it goes on.
You would think that men did not use money, and I'm sure women too, but here most of the people we're talking about are solo mums. You would think that men never used money as a way to continue to control the women in their lives, their ex-partners and their children. It's unfortunately the case, though. And what I saw when...
Men, women, mothers, fathers, I am shocked at the homophobia in that speech. I tried to find a tweet from Kiri Allen about this, but no, silence. Why was Simon O'Connor targeted again? It's because he's a social conservative. And according to most of the media and Labour, Greens and ACT, the sooner we get rid of social conservatives, the better. But we ain't going anywhere, are we? But you do know we're in big trouble when a discussion about fatherlessness and the needs for the parents of a child to be committed to raising that child deteriorates into a slandering match about so-called homophobia. They really have lost the plot, haven't they? Every child has a biological mother and a biological father. That's a fact. Oh, just one other funny thing last week as well. Kiri Allen was so focused on calling out Simon O'Connor's so-called homophobia that she forgot to focus on giving a proper speech, and she ended up repeating an exact speech from an earlier reading. So he's reading a speech in the second reading, and she's reading a speech in the third reading. Have a listen.
Madam Speaker, freedom camping is important to Aotearoa New Zealand for both our people and our visitors.
Madam Speaker, freedom camping is important to Aotearoa New Zealand for both our people and our manuhiri.
With many freedom campers travelling widely to experience our wonderful te taiao and spend money in our communities.
With many freedom campers travelling widely to experience our incredible taiao and spend money in our communities.
However, Madam Speaker, while the number of freedom campers has been steadily increasing over the last decade, so too have the negative environmental and social impacts.
However, while the number of freedom campers has been steadily increasing over the last decade, so too have the negative environmental and social impacts.
A particular...
Identical. And Kiri is the Minister of Justice and is supposed to know the law and how the process works. Maybe lawmaking should be the priority, not calling out someone for saying mother and father. Whoops. But what we learnt last week was that if you talk about fathers and mothers in Parliament, that's fine. But if you're a social conservative and you talk about mothers, fathers, marriage, strong families, you'll be labelled homophobic. Why? Well, because they want you to shut up. Well, don't. They want you to go away. Don't go away. Keep speaking up.